felt that money controls your life, not necessarily the other way around? When you think of money, do you hold your breath? Do you start to get really tight? Does the top of your roof rest against your tongue? No judgment. For today's Thursday Tickles, I want to talk about healing money wounds, because the truth is, so many of us have money wounds. Those invisible scrapes or bruises from past experiences of our life that kind of make our little internal piggy bank all rough, and sometimes those echoes of our past feel like they're daunting, like they're permanent. But the truth is, they're not. I want to talk about in these Thursday Tickles, first off, what is a money wound? Second, once you are aware of what money wounds are, how can you tell which ones you're really struggling with? Because, fun fact, there are lots of different types of wounds that many of us carry. The third thing I'm going to cover in this Thursday Tickle is, how can we tell when we're in that moment of scarcity, or when we're in that moment where the inner critic tends to take over? The thing is, many of us aren't aware of how deep our money wounds are. No judgment. It's not your fault. No one tells us about money wounds or how to heal this process. So no wonder so many of us feel like we're on autopilot in this financial space, or we have these deep-seated beliefs of being irresponsible. But I promise you, by the end of this tickle, you're going to feel extra loose and fun, and your piggy bank is going to be a little more polished, I promise. So that being said, everybody, hi, I'm Des Caminos, and I'm so excited to be talking to you about money wounds. What's up, Teresa? And hello, Women of Wisdom community. This Thursday Tickle is going to be a short video, and first I want to talk about just my experience. You know, I grew up in a very unique family dynamic, and a part of that dynamic came with a lot of financial scarcity. I remember being at the store asking my mom for a Kit Kat bar and watching her go into that space of tension, of survival, of defeat. Because at the time in our life, we were financially scarce. We didn't have the abundance to be able to buy unnecessary things such as Kit Kat bars. And I just remember feeling in that moment so small and so ashamed, because the way that it made my mother feel in that grocery store aisle was so hard for me. Drop a yes in the chat if you can relate to that. Of maybe asking for something from your parents when you were younger, only to be met with something that was defeat or shame or guilt. I'm going to dive a little bit more into how our childhood upbringings can really impact our money wounds, but I just want you to know that it is possible to overcome them. My turning point in my money story was I had the opportunity to join a year-long coaching program, and everything in my life said no. My inner critic, my brain, my body, my bank account, but my heart whispered yes. My heart knew that there was something deeper, that there was something abundant to this possibility. I felt like I had come up and walked straight into this invisible wall that I had walked into so many times in my life. That invisible wall of not enough, of it's not mine, of failure, of fear, of what if. And in that moment, having this opportunity in front of me, I remember sitting on the bed, shaking, kind of convulsing a little bit with hot tears running down my face, and just feeling so tired. Feeling so tired of playing this game of tug of war with money, except I was the rope. Feeling like I was on this roller coaster of up and down, of plot twist, of yo-yoing. You know, it was exhausting. And in that moment, despite everything telling me no, but my inner heart whispering flame telling me yes, I committed to that year-long program. It was the scariest thing I've ever done and the most money I've ever spent. But I'm so glad to be able to say that day by day, week by week, the more that I was able to lean into my flickering flame of desire, the more I was able to really start to cultivate a deeper understanding of my money wounds and the trauma that came with it. And again, we're just talking about trauma in this space as having our needs unmet. And so I'm going to invite you to put on your trauma glasses for this Thursday Tickle. You all should have a pair in front of you. But when we're younger and we have these experiences where we don't know how to process it, these big emotions, we tend to internalize it. And so there, my turning point of saying yes to my flickering flame, yes to my inner self, in that declaration of yes, I started the immediate transformation that was breaking away from old patterns of telling myself no. Old patterns of allowing myself to get caught in the spiral of the fear that I had grown up with money. And it was a journey. I spent a lot of time on audiobooks, a lot of time coaching myself, and a lot of time getting that additional support, because the truth is, it can be really scary learning how to heal our money wounds, or just healing wounds in general, if we don't have a roadmap. If we don't have a container. Money loves a container. Order loves a container. Healing loves a container. I mean, think about it. If we were to pour the beautiful essence of water, of healing into not a cup, it would pour everywhere. It's the same if we planted a seed in a beautiful garden of healing and there wasn't anything to contain it. Bugs, insects, animals might come and take that abundant garden of ours. So the point of this tickle is to give you a short, sweet, sacred little container that you can use to really start to cultivate a deeper understanding and break away from your money wounds and money patterns. And again, if you want more support around this free exclusive training next week inside my Women of Wisdom Facebook community, you can find it in the link in my bio. And for my Women of Wisdom who are watching this, what's up, ladies? So that being said, Des, you've been talking about money wounds a lot. What is it? You know, money wounds are, again, imagine that we have this part of us, this energy inside of us that is money. The beliefs, the stories, the experiences that we've taken around it, and we just kind of hold it like a little piggy bank in our heart. And that piggy bank is filled with abundance, is filled with love, gratitude, self-worth, and so many other things. But the truth is, that piggy bank has gotten a little scathed. You know, it's gotten a little scratched up. Maybe it's been dropped a couple of times. No judgment. Again, it's not your fault. Maybe you grew up in a criticizing environment. Maybe you invested in a bad project. Over time, the more that our little sacred piggy bank starts to get scuffled in real life examples, the more we tend to bring our piggy bank inward. And we start to put up walls around our piggy bank. Those walls around our piggy bank serve as wounds. These wounds that were created in our life at a time that we didn't know how to process them. We didn't know how to process the wounds that we were going through around money. So we started to put these wound walls up, again, to protect our sacred little piggy bank inside of our heart. And so, hey Sinead, hey Sarah. And so something that's really beautiful and powerful in this space is thinking about your money wound. These money wounds as walls that came up to protect your little piggy bank that was inside. The piggy bank of your self-worth, of your money, of your abundance that might have been dropped over the course of the years. So take a breath. The truth is, we all have money wounds. It's not something that's unique to me or you. It's part of the world that we live in, because we live in such a loud and busy world of consumerism, especially for women. Studies have shown that women are more likely to struggle with a scarcity mindset. Women, and what is a scarcity mindset? It's that feeling that no matter how much money you have, there's a chance of it being lost in a moment's eye. Women are also more likely to have their self-worth tied to their bank account, feeling like our self-worth is on this yo-yo dieting that's based off of how much money we have. Those are two really big things. And so if you're someone who's like, oh, it's not that big of a deal, I'll just have some wine or I'll brush it under the rug, take a break, take a breath. Take a breath and know that you're not alone. And even if that doesn't resonate, take a breath anyway. Money tends to fuel our inner critic, which puts us in a state of survival, keeping us nice and tight and tense. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the triggers that might happen in our life that can really show up as money wounds. If you are someone who gets caught in a comparison trigger, and that comparison trigger is going to be, maybe you're seeing someone posting something on social media about, a new car they got, or a new house, or, Christmas gifts that they've got coming up, new decorations. If you find yourself in that space of being triggered in that comparison, and you hold your breath, and maybe the inner critic is saying something like, I should be more successful. I should be where they are. I'm falling behind. I'm already so behind. If you are struggling with that, or your inner critic has said that, take a breath and know that you might have a money wound. The other thing is another big trigger that tends to come up, especially around this time of the year, is unexpected expenses. If your pipe broke in your house, if your car needs a new part, if your daughter decided to, sign up for a new program or a new thing, those unexpected expenses sometimes can trigger those walls around our internal piggy bank of self-worth, around those money wounds. If your inner critic might say something like, man, I can't handle this minor setback, or man, I wasn't prepared for this. Man, I am so terrible with money. If you're saying I'm so terrible with money and you find yourself in that inner dialogue, you might have a money wound. No judgment, not to love. The other two triggers I want to talk about are the debt trigger. And this is something that impacts many of us because we live in a consumer culture. Again, know that it's not your fault. We start taking in these social narratives of consumerism, of debt, of money at a very young age. And I'm going to talk about that after I go over these triggers as to how our childhood impacts can really influence our money wounds. But coming back to the debt trigger. If it's that time of the month and you're looking at your monthly statement, or you're kind of maybe interested in just trying to be aware of where your money's at, or for whatever reason, you're looking at your debt. You're thinking about your debt, you're looking about your debt. You hold your breath and you start to kind of spiral, and your inner critic says things like, I am so irresponsible. I'm so irresponsible. I will never get out of this debt. If that resonates, take a breath and know that you're not alone. And again, it's not your fault. We're taught to get credit cards at 18 because it's really good for our credit score, despite the fact that no one's really taught us how to navigate debt, how to navigate credit card, how to navigate the consumer culture that we live in. So if you get triggered with debt, take a breath, know that you're not alone, and you might have a money wound. The final trigger I want to talk about, which is another one that's really big, is just feeling like we're falling behind on our financial goals. As the end of year comes, holidays aside, as the end of the year comes, the end of quarter, we start to look and say, okay, getting ready for tax season. A lot of stuff is coming up. We're looking at our financial goals. And if you feel like you haven't met your financial goals, if you feel like that self-critical part of you is coming up with a microphone and that inner critic is shouting things like, man, I'm such a failure. I can't achieve my goals. I never achieve my goals. I'm so irresponsible. Take a breath. Know that you're not alone. And you might have a money wound. Now, there are so many other triggers that can really facilitate our money wounds coming up. A lot of times, a great way to become aware of them, if I didn't list them, is to think about the inner dialogue that your inner critic is getting you. The inner critic is my specialty because it's such a beautiful, annoying, and relentless, I admit, opportunity to really start to get aware of where we are holding wounds, where we're holding limiting beliefs, where we're holding patterns of repetition. If you've ever told yourself, I am not going to do that again, and the moment comes up and you're like, oh, shiitake, I did it again. Oftentimes it's because there is this deep-seated wound that we have, this deep-seated belief, this deep-seated pattern that's just been on autopilot for so much of our life that it can be difficult for us to disconnect from it. The inner critic gives a little warning, a little invitation of, hey, we're struggling with this. So as annoying as it can be, just take a breath and be mindful of the dialogue your inner critic is saying around money to get a better idea of what your money wounds are. Now that you might have a better idea of what your money triggers are, and if you're like, ooh, I resonated with one of those, go ahead and just drop yes in the comments. And just know that you're not alone. Whether you feel like saying yes or not and making that declaration to give some release or not, I see you. I've got your back. So there are a couple of ways that I want to talk about that childhood or origin story of the money wound, the inner critic, can really start to pop up. And I'm going to be diving a lot more into this next week during my free training, Your Stress-Free Holiday Roadmap, which is going to be held exclusively inside my Facebook community, Women of Wisdom. So if you're really looking for more than a tickle and really looking for some depth, join us over there. No emails required. And so coming back to how our childhood can really impact our money wounds. Family dynamics are a big and crucial thing for many of us. If your family grew up with a scarcity mindset, If your family grew up in an environment of financial scarcity, where maybe there were some difficulties in paying the rent, where, there wasn't money for other things such as a Kit Kat bar, if there was this heaviness that was carried, or insecurity or fear around being able to afford something, being able to pay the bill, the feeling like no matter what you have, it's not enough. If your family grew up in that, which is so common for so many of us, no judgment, know that that family pattern, that childhood experience that you had, which is not your fault, is going to play a really big part in your money wound and your money story. If you grew up, because a big thing is as we're growing up, we're starting to take in these templates, these ideas of what is safety, what is love, what is self-worth, what is abundance, and what is scarcity. So if we are growing up in a scarce environment, not only is our mind taking in those patterns, but so is our body. Our body, our nervous system is starting to regulate itself based off of fears and insecurities and a scarcity mindset, which is why logically we can tell ourselves as an adult, I'm not going to do that, or I will do that. And the moment comes up and it feels like something takes over and we catch ourselves in old patterns. Take a breath, hand on your heart. It's not my fault, because it's not. Now, I just want to talk about a couple more ways that our childhood can really impact us. If you feel like, if you didn't grow up with financial education, someone who is really there to support you in your developmental years and your formative years about budgeting, investing, financial planning, taxes, Excel sheets, invoices. If you feel like you didn't have that education, that preparation, oftentimes it can really create a lasting wound that many of us carry out wall around our piggy bank of feeling like we're just financially ignorant. If we don't understand what everybody else is talking about, we feel like we're not as effective around money. It can make us feel a lot of lack. Feel like we're not organized and we don't have the tools and the skills and the resources. And so that lack of financial education fuels our inner dialogue of ignorance, of difficulty, of lack of efficiency. It impacts our self-trust, so we hold our breath, and those money wounds start to rise, getting bigger and bigger with each passing experience. Again, it's not your fault. The third thing I really want to talk about is just maybe you grew up, or there's a time in your life where there was some unexpected financial trauma. And I know that the trauma might bring up some stuff, so just take a breath and bear with me. And again, talking about traumas, our needs not being met. If there was a sudden financial trauma, especially in your childhood, such as the loss of a home due to a foreclosure, or a parent losing their job, a parent being laid off, a big unexpected bill like a hospitalization or something that happened, these traumatic events can lead to behaviors like hoarding money, feeling like we have to hold on to it, that we can't really spend it. There's this strong fear that there's going to be a financial disaster in your life. And so you hold on to it and you find yourself feeling really stressed or really critical anytime there's a moment for you to spend. You might struggle with guilt-free spending. You might feel like every time you make a purchase, you're losing a lot of time and energy and mental clarity to feeling out whether it's worthy or not. Those are three big things that tend to happen in our developmental years, just in our life, that can really fuel our inner critic around those money wounds. And we can really make those money wounds, those money walls bigger and bigger and bigger. Take a breath and just know it's not your fault. If you're still with me for this tickle, drop in the chat, it's not my fault, because it really isn't, I promise. Now, the beautiful next part of healing money wounds. So again, it's becoming aware of first, how is my money wound showing up in my life? Where did my money wound come from? And the next part of that is really learning how to cultivate a new relationship with money. And I know that can be hard. It's hard to cultivate a relationship with something that maybe you're afraid of, maybe you hate, maybe you're really angry towards, which is why this is going to be a big focus in my event next week, Thursday. And so for the women of wisdom who are watching this in the Facebook community, drop in the chat if you are excited about it. And for those of you who are on my general Facebook page and on my Instagram, or watching this in the future on YouTube, if you're interested in joining, if you're interested in joining us, please click the link in the bio, in the event description, comment, and I'll reach out to you with the link. This stress-free holiday roadmap has been curated and cultivated with the community in mind. Inside my Women of Wisdom community, I ask, what are some challenges that you have with end-of-the-year overwhelm, with navigating the holiday season? So this 3-day training is exclusively for the community, for you. And the main goal is because I understand what it's like to feel guilty because you hate the holidays, or to feel like you're already going into restless nights and anxiety and spiraling thoughts because you're so overwhelmed at the stacking to-do list of expectations. I want more for us, more for the community, more for women, which is why I'm offering this training for free, no email required. Because we all deserve a holiday season where we feel like we've broken away from old patterns. Or maybe we don't need to hit the wine as hard, or, whatever it is that you do as well. Maybe smoke. I don't want you to feel like you have to lean into these numbing patterns to be with your family, or to feel like the only time that you can really unwind is with these escaping behaviors. I don't want you to feel like, have a holiday season where you're not reactive, where you're present with your family, where you can lean into self-care and boundaries without guilt. How different would your holiday season look if that were the case? Just know that it's possible. It's possible to have a holiday where you feel excited, where you wake up with joy and readiness, where you're present and engaged with your family, where you're so much more than an event planner, a chauffeur. You're a woman who is leaning into harmony, freedom. And I've got your back if you want that. So that being said, everybody, I'm Des Caminos, embodiment coach. I'm so excited to be diving deeper into money wounds on day 3 of our 3-day exclusive training, your stress-free holiday roadmap. Everybody, I hope that you enjoyed this. Drop in the chat if you're still with me. What's your biggest takeaway? Bye, everybody. I can't wait to read your takeaways. Awkward time where I get off live. Goodbye, Women of Wisdom community. Mwah. And goodbye, Instagram.